I am celebrating the gift of community as well as the gift of forgiveness. I'm going to share with you a story that I've caught myself sharing twice in the past week, and each one was somewhat extemporaneously. When I was ordained in 2006, it was September, there were a number of people who had flown out to Denver, Colorado to acknowledge this journey that I had been on, and many people had made tremendous sacrifices for me to have reached that place where the church had recognized something in me in that I was called to serve the church. And after the ordination ceremony had taken place, I was invited to thank all of those I needed to thank. And after thanking everyone, we sang a hymn. And while singing that hymn, I realized that I had forgotten to thank someone. And it was somewhat awkward, but I thought worthwhile to step back to the lectern and thank my mother. I had forgotten my mother. And so I thanked her. And afterwards I thought, I'm so grateful for a community of faith as well as for forgiveness. And feeling like I had done what I was joyful to do, immediately following that service, I saw the look in Valerie's eyes, my wife's eyes. I had forgotten to thank my wife and the mother of my children. Now, during the passing of the peace, and I heard it when I heard Drew step up and compliment what I had forgotten to say, and I'm grateful for this community of faith. Happy Mother's Day. We are mindful and we want to celebrate mothers. We are mindful. We're grateful for a community of compassion. I know within the sound of my voice, there are mothers who have lost children, which God never intended. There are many of us who are longing to be present with our mothers, those who are in a different geographical location and those who have gone on to life beyond our imagining. We're grateful for the mothers who are not biological mothers, the people who have nurtured us along the way. I thank God for the village and villages of mothers. The love of God shown uniquely through the nurturing care of those to whom we've been entrusted and those who responded to that trust. We are deeply, deeply grateful for those who have reflected, in many ways illuminated, imparted to us what the love of God is truly all about. Today's passage is particularly unique, and it is condensed with wisdom. This is one of those chapters, really, where Paul is giving instruction to the church. And I believe he's given instruction to the church for those who are just beginning life's journey, as well as those who are in their twilight years. This is a passage that's relevant to all of us. He says, by the mercies of God, I beseech you to live your lives, to present your lives as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable. I've come to see that that word holy is not to be translated as purity. God desires for us a life of fulfillment. God desires for us a life of meaning. God desires for us a sincere life of purpose. The kind of life that is fully dedicated. The life that is fulfilled paradoxically even as we pour our lives out in love. It's only been in recent years that I've come to see that Jesus' great sacrifice was not his death. That was the easy part. We know that in part because of the words of Paul, that for those of us who gathered during the journey of Lent, we saw early on that he was under some kind of dilemma. There was dissonance within his spirit. He said, I don't know which I prefer, to go on and be with Christ or to stay and remain in service to you for your edification. It is far better for me to go and be with Christ, to go beyond this lifetime to life beyond our imagining. But I know it's better for you that I stay and be of service to you. It's the life we live that is the great sacrifice. And that sacrifice, while it has a cost, is an invitation to fulfillment. To love so deeply, so profoundly, that we are willing to incur whatever cost it may require. That which we love deeply, those whom we love deeply, there is no cost that is too costly. And it is in the relationships that we find our fulfillment. No longer be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our minds. It's worth noting that in Matthew's gospel, when Jesus takes with him Peter, James, and John on that mountain to pray, and Jesus, before Peter, James, and John, is transfigured. That word transfiguration is translated from the Greek metamorpho, which is the same word that is used in Paul's letter to Rome when he says, be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Whether or not we are being confirmed on our new journey of faith, as we have many confirmands that are being confirmed even as I speak, who will come over after this service and be presented to you. If we're completing high school and beginning a whole new journey, for those of us who have completed our vocations, our professions, we're entering into our retirement, or we're long-term retirees, we are all called to continually grow. That is a divine assignment that all of us share, to continue to grow in the knowledge of who God is, to grow in the knowledge of who we truly are, to grow in the knowledge of who God is calling us to be in this particular season of our lives. Did you notice that Paul, when he said to present your bodies, your lives as a living sacrifice, as we are no longer conformed to the pattern of this world, but transformed by the renewing of our mind, he says, then you will be able to discern what is the acceptable will of God, what is the perfect will of God. I turned 52 years old my last birthday. And in my lifetime, I've come to see that I get accustomed to thinking that I know what God thinks about something, that I no longer consult God about what God thinks about something. But the truth is, God's wisdom is wisdom for today. There are some eternal and timeless truths, but they are relevant particularly for today. Our circumstances change. The world in which we live is constantly changing. The theologian Paul Tillich set of theologians that the task of the theologian is to reinterpret the kerygma for each generation. Now, what did he mean by that? The task of the professional theologian is to reinterpret the Christian message for every generation. Why would that be? Because the symbols, the language, the values constantly change in that world that we are no longer to be formed with. And yet, we are called to be a part of the world. How many of you know that each one of us is called to be more or less a theologian? Some of us are called to be professional theologians. Profess. That's my profession. This is me living out the calling to which I have been called, to communicate, hopefully, simplicity on the other side of complexity to those who are not called to be professional theologians, but all of us are called to be theologians. A theologian is one who communicates, understands who God is, who we are, what we are called to be and do in the here and now. Now, don't raise your hand when I ask this question, if your answer is yes. For those of you who are a part of Community Church, how many of you would like to go back 10 years, 20 years, 30? Put your hands down now. Some of us 50 years. Do you know there are very few churches that I've been a part of in my lifetime that they don't remember the day of the 60s and the 70s and the Sunday schools were full and we had plenty of resources and we would pack our worship spaces. We'd have 2, 3, 4 services and people just, you could expect they would come. Have you ever felt like that? What is God calling us to be here and now? God is the one that takes form here and now. God is the one that took bodily form 2,000 years ago in a particular time, in a particular place, in a particular context. We as the church are called to embody the presence of God in a particular time, in a particular place, in a particular context. We personally go to various contexts at different times, different seasons of our lives. Who is God calling me to be? Who is God calling you to be in the here and now? And that is a matter of discernment that includes, but transcends our reason. I love about Community Church, I've said this on 2 different occasions already this week. I love about Community Church, and this is where I believe we have a particular and unique contribution to make. Jesus once said, be as wise as serpents, be as gentle as doves. Martin Luther King, 2,000 years later, described it differently. He said, be people with tough minds and tender hearts. It is often the case that those with tender hearts aren't always tough-minded. It's also the case that occasionally, those with tough minds, those that are willing to do the rigorous, incisive thinking that is required to make good decisions today, aren't often kind and tender-hearted. Community Church is one of the rare churches, a church the world needs today, where we possess both tough-mindedness, rigorous thinking, understanding the dynamics of the world in which we live. We're also kind and compassionate-hearted, responding to those needs. Learning and growing never changes. I'm finding myself having to learn language that is not a first language to me. This past week, I found myself listening and learning from some of the most informed minds on what it means to be able to provide the kind of service as an organization that we want to provide. One person was speaking about hundreds of startups that he had observed. This was a professor from Harvard. Hundreds of startups. And what caused some of them to be able to provide the service, to create a product that people needed? What distinguished them from others? He named 5 characteristics that were common to all and then named them according to priority. One was an idea. Another is the right team. The third was the right business model. The fourth was funding. The fifth, timing. We can all recognize that all 5 of those are important. Do you know what he discovered? That above all was absolutely essential. Timing. Timing. Discernment. You can have the right idea. You can have the right team. You can have the right model. You can have the funding. But if the timing isn't right, if it's not what you're called to do at a particular place and a particular time, it's not going to meet the need. He gave the example that there was a startup that he was a part of in 1999. And their idea was to provide short videos, entertaining or instructional. But in 1999, the internet didn't have enough bandwidth. And so the videos would continue to load, and then they would pause, and they could watch part of it, and then they get stuck, and people would give up. Just a few years later, there was someone else with the same idea at the right time. How many of you have ever heard of YouTube? Whether it's in our personal lives, whether it's in our collective lives, we are the one body of Christ. Each one of us, members thereof. We are a part of something much larger than ourselves. We have a divine assignment to continually grow in the love of God, because that is who God is. To continually grow in our understanding of who we personally are called to be in this season of life. For those of us who have the wonderful fortune to be called to be a part of this community of faith, we have the exciting opportunity. Hear me now, this is not a preacher doing a rah-rah. We have the opportunity to surrender. Maybe even what worked in the past. Maybe we'll reclaim it. But to ask God, who are you calling us to be in the here and now? If we will truly surrender our plans to God, God can and will do far abundantly more than we can ever ask or imagine. That's my prayer for you. That's my prayer for me. That's my prayer for all of us, because that's God's divine assignment. Amen.